this whole album from the start, I wanted it to feel like a concept album, and with the eclectic style of music, I think we really nailed that.
Emma, thank you so much for your time. Ember Belladonna is on a quest to maybe double-handedly, reclaim the flute for the world of metal, which hasn't happened since Jethro Tull stole Metallica's Grammy in 1989. How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderfully. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Now, your album already came out. We'll go into everything. Usually I interview people before an album comes out. In this case, it is right after. Would I have seen and heard a very different Emma if this was still in the days leading up to it? Are you much calmer today because that weight is off your shoulders, or what's going on inside there?
I don't know. It just feels like it doesn't stop because there's been so much response to the album. I didn't really know what to expect when I put this out into the world. So I don't know. It feels like it's still just rolling.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, so for people that are new to your music, you basically bring folk metal. It's broader than that, but where your flute has not just a role to play, but is front and center. And that was a very conscious decision that you made, that you wanted to try something that hadn't been done yet. Now, before the album properly kicks off, we get a little bit of an intimate start to it, if you will, maybe more Blackmore's Night than Rainbow, but then the album does break loose. One thing that stands out immediately, I listened to your earlier singles as well. In the first music that you put out, you had 2 singles, I believe. Mm-hmm. The modern instruments, the metal sound, the rock sound, was not just a little bit in the background, it was quite in the background. Mm-hmm. So the first thing that we notice when we listen to this album is that, sure, the flute is front and center, but all of the instruments get more place in the spotlight. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. And I think ultimately the main reason because of that is, like, since I've released those singles, it's been almost 3 years now. Mm-hmm. I've improved as a writer. My production has improved, and I brought in a few other people to work on this album as well. So all of that together just led to a fuller sound, I think.
Now that you know what's possible for newer music, do you have any appetite to go back to those singles and give them the new treatment, if you will?
It's possible. I might. I've switched computers and switched DAWs since I put out those singles, so there'd have to be like a lot of rework done. I actually had a few more instrumental songs that I was working on and just didn't quite make it onto this album when I felt it just needed to be out into the world. So I think that's probably what I'd end up going back to next is some more instrumental stuff.
Yeah. So you mentioned it. There are instrumental songs. There are also songs with lyrics and with singers on this album. So it's a little bit of both that we get. You use different singers, different styles. I'll come back in that into a second. But with some of those songs, the lyrics or the singing, where again in traditional metal that would be front and center, that is still somewhat playing a second fiddle, if you will, to your flute. And with no disrespect to my buddy James, for example, who's one of your guest singers, who's a great singer, it has to be the flute that tells the main story.
Yeah, and I think going into this, they all knew it was going to be a flute-centered album, and they all knew that in various places the vocals would be in the background. And I think it was just very much a collaboration with each of the vocalists as well. And I think we were able to find that balance really well in the production of the music as well. So it was very intentional for sure.
Yeah. Now, by working with different, because there's I think 3 songs on the album with singing, very different vocal approaches, but also a singer's voice is so important to a song, so that also kind of gives the whole song a different dimension, which means that we get some different approaches on this album. As you're going through this and as you're working through this, were there like things that for you stood out more, that you like more? Like when we think about already a next album, you already mentioned you've got some unfinished ideas. Are we going to see you go into one specific area more, or should we always expect from you to get quite an eclectic collection of songs?
I'm not too sure yet, but I think in terms of working with the vocalists, this whole album from the start, I wanted it to feel like a concept album, and with the eclectic style of music, I think we really nailed that. And with each of the vocalists, they were all within my network when I started writing this album. I kind of wrote the songs with each of their vocal styles in mind, and I'm really happy that they all agreed when I approached them with it. They all agreed to sing on the album as well. So that was really exciting. One thing that I sort of dipped into a little bit, and you hear it in a couple songs, is my glissando flute and using guitar amps and guitar pedals to just bring a whole new sound to the flute. And I kind of I felt like I was tiptoeing into that a little bit with this album, and people have been so responsive to it. People think it's so cool. They want to hear more. And so I think we're really going to go heavy in that direction for the instrumentals, the heavy flute sounds, and that's where I'm feeling really inspired to take this next.
You've been inspired also by not just other bands, but also soundtrack composers. A song like "Heart of a Grove," for me, brings up memories of Braveheart and Lord of the Rings and all that kind of good stuff. You already mentioned, you wanted to really write a concept album in a way. Does that mean that if we just, completely, jump the gun, that on your bucket list is to compose a soundtrack for a movie or something like that?
I mean, I think that would be amazing. And the dream would be to compose a soundtrack that's in my style. So we'll see if that happens. Like I've been really lucky to work with composers as a session musician, so I do have credits on video games and films already. But yeah, I think if I can manifest any dream, it would be to do a full soundtrack in my style. I think that would be incredible.
And in between a regular album and a soundtrack are concept albums, and there's concept albums and there's concept albums, and there's full-blown rock and metal operas. Do you want, like you said, like, oh, I wrote these songs with specific singers in mind? Does that mean that if we give you all the time and unlimited access to your network and beyond, that you'd love to go full-blown Avantasia style with multiple singers in one song that do different roles in the story as well? Is it that far, or for you, should a concept stay a little bit more of a thread, loads of layers of metaphor and not too specific, if you will?
I think the second description you had is a little more accurate. And I love rock operas, absolutely love that, but I don't feel that's where my style of writing and my style of music is taking me towards. So I really do like the more instrumental side, where you get a little bit of the vocals, but really it creates the images and the stories in your mind without being too forward, really.
You said you tapped into your own network for this album, for the people that work with you. You're located in Canada. All your guest singers are maybe not officially Canadian, but are in Canada as well. However, in the last couple of years, we've seen very much a global kind of like resurgence, if you will, and I know that if you want to be specific, that it's a very completely wrong classification. But if I'm just going to use neo-pagan or paganism style, we've seen bands like Heilung, Wardruna, Eloviri, Thinna, Faun, all getting global appeal. Where that kind of music, this like Celtic roots or pagan roots, in Germany has been very popular for decades. In certain parts of Scandinavia, it's been very popular. In the last 5-6 years, it seems that there's a more broader appeal to that, including North America. When you've been putting out your music, are you also seeing that you're getting reactions from a much wider spectrum than you anticipated? Because I don't think it's just Canadians listening to you or sharing some feedback with you.
Yeah, and I've been keeping a very close eye on my stats and just curious on where this album has been traveling. And based on those statistics, like all my people are in Europe and Finland and Poland specifically. So it's really cool to have that big reach and the fact that we do have this globalized world and can have that reach wherever it speaks to people. So I love that.
Yeah. So should those people in Poland and Finland keep their fingers crossed for seeing you there at some point, playing music?
Maybe. I would love that. I don't have any solid plans to do a tour at the moment, but I'm definitely not ruling it out in the future.
There are a couple of other examples of people in recent years that introduced a unique sound to the world of metal. We've seen some electric violinists join some bands on stage. A perfect example would be Paddy Gurdy, that has gotten a lot of great success. Who's now almost fully joined Ailstorm as a member. With getting more traction and people more getting introduced to your sound, is that an avenue that you'd be interested in as well, where you as a flute player bring your sound to a band, or are you really focused on I need to do my own thing right now?
I think it's a mix of both. I love having the freedom to put out my own music and collaborate with other bands as well. Like myself and the Inferno Doll, we've collaborated on a couple songs before she joined me on this album. And then more recently, I got to work with Adon on their death metal album, and the first single is already out. So that was really fun. That was like a whole new genre for me to explore with Flute and bring my sound to their music. And I love doing both. I love that I've been given the opportunity to do both and work with so many amazing musicians, whether it's me creating the music in my style or me being able to lend my style to their music.
Yeah. Now, you already mentioned there's not necessarily a tour planned right now. But we know that you've got music to work on. One of the songs was called Unnamed to begin with. And you said you have more ideas and whatnot. You are collaborating with other bands. So for everybody watching this video, like, what should we keep our eyes open for Ember Belladonna in 2024?
So there's a couple music videos that are going to be coming, probably in the summer, a couple more collaborations with some metal bands, and a couple of video game soundtracks that are on their way as well. So the full spectrum is on its way.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I was going to say Ember, but I should just say Emma. That's super exciting. I mean, obviously, we got a taste of what those music videos could be like for the, let's call it, intro to the album that you've already released. Should we expect that the storyline that is introduced in that video continues for these summer music videos?
Yes, actually, I love that you picked up on that, because we filmed a couple music videos all at once that had a story that carried throughout. And so this was the first taste of it. And then we will have more music videos that are going to continue that story as well.
Okay, awesome. So everybody that has already listened to the album can really listen to the lyrics and figure out what emotions are going on and maybe make some predictions on what's going to come in these videos. Emma, I do hope that we get to see you on a stage soon, whether that is with your own band or project, or whether that is as a guest spot on one of the many bands that you work with. And I hope that that can happen in 2024, whether I think Canada or somewhere else, it doesn't really matter. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it, for
Thank you so
shedding a little bit of
much.
light on this, unique new album. And I'm excited to hear where you're going to take this.
Thank you so much for your support. I had a wonderful time talking with you.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.